Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to, cut through the noise and get straight to the insights. And today, well, we're tackling a really big idea, something that might challenge, frankly, everything you think you know about health. What if this whole concept of detox? What if it's just fundamentally flawed? What if trying to cleanse your body after the fact is, well, maybe not the answer? And the real key is stopping toxins from getting in the first place. Our main source for this deep dive is pretty groundbreaking. It's called Why Modern Medicine Cannot Detox. Once toxins enter the body, they can never be removed. It's by Fuchi Wu, who's known as the Master, and DAGE, the Strategist. We're also bringing in some key context from another piece, Indoor and Outdoor Air Toxins, a silent threat.
So our mission today, let's unpack why these conventional detox methods might be falling short, where toxins really hide out, and explore what a truly different approach to health protection might look like.
Okay, let's get into it. Are we, missing a massive piece of the health puzzle here?
I think the argument is yes, absolutely we are. The master's work, it just hits you right away with this really staggering idea. He asserts that once toxins get deep inside an organ,
Yeah.
they're basically there for good, permanently embedded. And the claim is pretty stark. You can't get them out. Not with pills, not exercise, not diet changes, not even, he says, with surgery.
Wow, okay. That's a huge reframe right out of the gate. Because it really bumps up against what so many of us believe, that feeling of if I'm not in pain, I must be okay. Or even for doctors, the idea that, well, the test numbers look normal, so the organs must be healthy. What makes the master argue that kind of thinking is flawed?
Well, he says it overlooks
Hmm.
this decades-long silent collapse,
Mhm.
something that's happening, but we just don't measure it. And the argument isn't that our medical tools are bad, necessarily. It's that the flaw is deeper. It's in the entire foundation of medical thinking, as he puts it. So it's not just about missing a symptom here or there. It's about not even looking for this underlying invisible infiltration.
A fundamental flaw in all medical thinking. That's a really bold claim. For people listening who might find that, well, hard to accept, what's the core argument? Especially when we talk about all those detox products out there.
Exactly. That's where it gets practical.
Mm.
If these toxins are permanent once they're embedded deep, then things like common detox products,
Mm.
they just can't work on that level. Think about diuretics. Sure, they make you pee more, but they're mostly removing water-soluble stuff from your bloodstream. Small stuff. They don't reach deep into the tissues. Laxatives. Well, they clean out your intestines, obviously, but that does nothing for your liver, your brain, your fat cells, even antioxidants. They're important. They help prevent new damage by neutralizing free radicals, right? But they do absolutely zero to remove toxins already stored deep inside. So the core insight is these products are working on a totally wrong assumption if the master is right. They can't touch what's really embedded.
Right, so it's like they're cleaning the surface, maybe. While the real danger, according to this work, is hidden much deeper, what are some specific things these products are just completely unable to do?
Well, the list is pretty specific and, frankly, worrying. None of them can actually get inside liver cells to pull out residual solvents that might be stored there. They can't cross the blood-brain barrier to clear out, say, chemical mists that might have settled in the brain, and they definitely can't extract things like plasticizers, those chemicals from plastics out of deep fat tissues where they tend to accumulate. So the grim reality, as the master describes it, is that once a toxin gets into these deep tissues, it becomes, his words, permanent stored, layered, invisible, until it breaks something.
Permanent, that word. Yeah, that hits hard. It suggests these things aren't just floating around like, I don't know, bacteria that your body can eventually flush out. They actually embed themselves. So where do these invisible enemies like to hide?
They definitely have preferred spots, these hiding places where they're particularly hard to dislodge. Cat tissue is a big one. That's where things like plasticizers, dioxins, many pesticides like to accumulate. Your liver, the organ we think of for processing everything, it becomes a kind of haven for solvents, VOCs from paints or cleaners, that kind of thing. The brain, unfortunately, seems to be where airborne aromatics, like from fragrances and things like benzene rings, tend to settle. And then you have heavy metals, lead, mercury, they often gravitate towards bone marrow and nerves.
And these aren't just random spots, are they? There's a reason these locations are so problematic. It's not just where they hide, but why those places are so vulnerable, right? What does that mean for, our health and how we check it?
Exactly. These areas often have really poor circulation compared to, say, muscle. They lack active, dedicated detox mechanisms within the cells themselves, plus trying to biopsy them. Often nearly impossible or incredibly risky. Think about trying to biopsy deep brain tissue regularly. You just can't. And the kicker is they often show zero symptoms, nothing. until there's a major catastrophic collapse.
So yeah, they're basically toxin havens in organs we absolutely cannot afford to lose. The problem stays silent until it's potentially way too late. And this ties into another really uncomfortable truth from the source material, one that directly challenges standard medical teaching. It's this idea that our liver and kidneys are these great filters for toxins.
Right, right. I remember your analogy earlier, like saying a sponge filters oil. Eventually, it just gets saturated and clogged. Maybe you become part of the problem itself. That's a good way to put it. Well, yes, these organs are absolutely the main routes for toxins passing through the body. The liver processes them. The kidneys try to excrete some in urine. The point here is that neither can effectively remove toxins already trapped deep within their own tissue or other tissues. They're dealing with the flow, the traffic, but they can't clean the buildup that's already embedded inside the walls, so to speak.
Okay, and that could actually explain some of those really confusing medical situations you were about, couldn't it? Like people getting serious liver diseases, fibrosis, or even cancer, but their standard liver function tests looked normal for years. Or someone experiencing kidney failure, but early scans showed nothing wrong. It sounds like maybe the tests weren't looking at the right kind of damage.
Precisely. Because the problem isn't always about what's actively flowing through the organ at that moment, but about the accumulated load stuck inside, silently causing damage. The master's conclusion is pretty chilling. The detox center is also the first casualty of invisible poison. It's ironic, but it makes a grim kind of sense if toxins are truly embedding permanently.
So, if these toxins are embedding themselves deep down, and even our main detox organs are getting poisoned in the process, how good are our current medical tests at actually seeing this accumulation? What are the big blind spots?
Well, this exposes another pretty significant flaw in the conventional approach, according to this work. Blood tests. They really only detect what's floating around in your bloodstream at that moment. They don't show you what's stored away in your fat cells or deep inside organ cells. Biopsies. Okay, sometimes they can reveal late-stage tissue damage, sure, but they're invasive, they carry risks, and you obviously can't do them repeatedly all over your body just to check for toxins. And imaging, things like MRI or CT scans, they are great at showing structural changes, a tumor, a lesion, physical damage, but they offer no visibility of chemical load. They can't see the chemicals themselves.
Wow. That really paints a bleak picture, doesn't it? So toxins pile up silently, maybe for decades. Doctors run the usual tests, detect nothing wrong. Then suddenly an organ fails, and everyone's saying, wow, it just came out of nowhere.
It feels less like proactive medicine and more like damage assessment after the fact.
The source calls it after-the-fact archaeology. That's the term used. You're basically sifting through the ruins after the collapse. You see the end result, the broken structure, but you completely missed the slow, quiet chemical infiltration that actually caused it. It's a system designed to react, not to prevent this kind of invisible attack.
Okay, so given this really grim picture, toxins getting stuck permanently, tests being blind to them, the obvious question is, what can we possibly do? And this is where the master's approach really, truly breaks from tradition, right? If you can't get the toxins out, what's the only logical alternative? Don't let them in. Ever. It's that simple and that radical. That's the absolute core of his design philosophy. If nothing, no pill, no diet, no procedure can reliably clean the toxins after they've entered deep tissues, then the only viable strategy left is prevention. Complete prevention of entry.
And this is where that system you mentioned comes in, the Air 6-free maize purification system. It sounds less like a medicine and more like, advanced environmental engineering, a new kind of health architecture.
That's exactly what it is. It's about engineering-based toxin barriers. We're talking about things like fully sealed rooms, precisely controlled directional airflow to push contaminants away, creating positive pressure, clean zones concepts like the human paradise idea. This isn't about making hopeful claims for a detox supplement or a drug. This is practical, physical architecture designed for survival, creating a personal environment where harmful toxins literally cannot reach you.
That's a massive paradigm shift, moving completely away from trying to fix the problem after it happens to designing systems that prevent it from ever starting. And this shift brings up a really crucial, almost unsettling point. If these toxins are potentially all around us, why don't we feel them? Why aren't we constantly aware of this supposed threat?
And that reveals what the source calls a core vulnerability of our species. Our nervous system basically has almost zero ability to detect slow, long-term chemical accumulation.
Right. Our brains evolved to detect, sudden strong dangers, a predator jumping out, a sharp pain from an injury, things that require immediate reaction, not this kind of slow poison quietly seeping in over years. It's an evolutionary mismatch, isn't it?
Exactly. And a big part of this is a phenomenon called neural adaptation. It's actually a clever feature of the brain. In many ways, it helps us filter out constant, unchanging stimuli so we can focus on new things. Think about how you stop noticing the hum of your computer or the feeling of your clothes after a while. The longer a low-level stimulus, like chemical presence, is there, the more your brain just tunes it out. It becomes effectively invisible to your senses.
Okay, let's make that really concrete. So you definitely feel a burn on your skin, right? But you wouldn't feel plasticizer chemicals slowly building up in your fat tissue. You feel hunger pangs, obviously, but you don't feel VOCs from paint slowly accumulating in your liver cells. You might smell a strong chemical initially, but you likely wouldn't perceive fragrance molecules quietly crossing into your brain tissue over time. You might feel emotional swings, but you probably wouldn't connect them to, say, pesticides subtly disrupting your endocrine system.
Exactly. The bottom line is stark. Toxins accumulate, and you feel nothing. Your body simply doesn't send you a warning signal because it wasn't designed to detect this kind of slow, pervasive chemical saturation. And the source emphasizes this isn't just a medical problem that we need a new test for. It's framed as a fundamental species-wide vulnerability, something we're only now starting to really grapple with.
And where are all these silent threats actually coming from? Let's pull on that other source now. Indoor and outdoor air toxins. It makes it clear these aren't just, rare industrial accidents. They seem to be, well, everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much. The source breaks it down into two major categories that, quite worryingly, often activate together, meaning you're exposed to both simultaneously. First, you've got indoor sources, and this is key, because we often think of our homes or cars as safe havens, right? But they can be major sources. We're talking VOCs, volatile organic compounds, and microplastics off-gassing from car interiors, fumes from cooking, dander from us and our pets. Then there's formaldehyde, benzene, ammonia from building materials, furniture, carpets, paints, plus artificial fragrances and other toxic molecules in personal care products, cleaning supplies. Even some air purifiers can produce excess ozone. And don't forget, mold spores potentially circulating in central air systems.
Okay, so that's indoors. And these things, they don't knock you out immediately, but they're constantly there, slowly pushing you toward the toxin saturation point, as the source puts it. And then you add the outdoor stuff on top of that.
Correct. Outdoor sources compound the problem significantly. Think vehicle exhaust, cars, trucks, motorcycles, planes. Brake dust is a big one too, releasing heavy metals and fine particles. Microplastics are outdoors as well. Then there's PM 2.5 and PM 0.1. That's particulate matter, tiny airborne particles measured in micrometers. PM 0.1 is really small. These come from construction, road wear releasing heavy metals from concrete and asphalt, industrial emissions, incinerator particles. You also get acidic mists, submicron aerosols, even pesticide particles that can cling to pollen and travel. And a major issue recently is ultrafine nanoparticles, PM 0.1, and even smaller from things like wildfire smoke or sandstorms. These are so tiny they can penetrate deep into your lungs, get into your bloodstream, reach your brain, maybe even get inside cell nuclei and potentially mess with cell function.
Wow, so that simple act, just opening your windows for fresh air, might actually be, as the source says, allowing toxins to freely enter. It really frames it as a constant 24-hour toxin infiltration war, not just an occasional exposure. Which then raises the question, if we're dealing with particles that small, especially PM 0.1 and nanoparticles, why do even supposedly advanced air purifiers, like the ones using HEPA filters, still fall short according to this analysis?
Well, they have some pretty critical shortcomings when facing these tiniest, potentially most dangerous particles. Standard HEPA filters, by definition, are rated for particles 0.3 micrometers and larger. They're actually quite effective at that size. But PM 0.1 nanoparticles, they're hundreds of times smaller. The source states they penetrate almost entirely through typical HEPA media. Another issue is airflow speed in many designs. It's often too fast. The tiny particles don't have enough dwell time near the filter media for mechanisms like absorption to really work effectively. Also, the electrostatic charge that helps some filters capture particles, it can decay relatively quickly, sometimes fails within weeks, meaning performance drops off fast. And fundamentally, most lack the complex maze structure that the master's designs incorporate, which is needed for things like inertial impaction and enhanced electrostatic absorption to effectively trap those ultrafine particles.
I see. So it's not just about having a filter, it's about the type of filter and the design of the system, especially when you're targeting these ultrafine particles, the really insidious ones. It sounds like The argument is that only very specific patented designs like the Life Module 2026 mentioned truly have the ability to intercept the finest, most deadly killers.
That's the claim, precisely, which leads us directly back to the core overarching message, the final truth presented. Detox is a myth only. Toxin blocking can save you.
Let's just hammer that home, be really blunt about it like the sources. You cannot just sweat out benzene that's settled in your tissues. You cannot pee out plasticizers that have lodged in your brain. You cannot take a supplement and magically detox your liver from embedded solvents. So if all that is true, what is the only path forward that actually works according to this perspective?
It comes down to physical barriers and control. Only fully sealed air systems, combined with carefully managed directional airflow and, crucially, eliminating the sources of toxins wherever possible. Only that combination can truly prevent poison from entering your body in the first place. That's the engineering solution proposed.
So the vision here, the master's vision, is that something like Air 6 free. It doesn't even try to clean the body after the fact. It aims to shield the body so it never needs that kind of cleaning. And this is presented not just as a good idea, but as the only path to sustained health, long life, and human evolution. That's a profound statement about rethinking our entire approach to health. What a fundamentally different way to think about it. Moving completely away from this often fruitless cycle of exposure and attempted cleansing to the, well, maybe radical simplicity of just preventing the exposure altogether.
Yeah, and if you connect that to the bigger picture, really understanding this inherent vulnerability our species seems to have to slow, invisible chemical accumulation.
Yeah.
It really demands we reevaluate everything, how we define well-being, how we pursue it. It forces a shift towards proactive physical defense, especially since our own internal warning systems, our senses, are effectively blind to this specific type of threat.
So thinking about all this, what really stands out to why you, the listener, about how you might need to protect yourself differently, especially knowing that your body isn't necessarily wired to warn you about these silent threats and that the old detox paradigm might not be the answer. Definitely something to ponder as you, well, look around your own environment and think about what you're breathing in every day.